We've been gradually,
Springfield Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for August is called to order. Please stand and we'll have the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank everybody for being here. If you haven't seen the Dan and Shay video that's out now that displays all of Springfield downtown, please go out on our website or on Facebook and watch that. It is wonderful. We appreciate Dan and Shay picking Springfield to do their video. They got that video out really quick. We will go into approving our minutes, 1.2. The approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen held on July 20th, 2021. We have a motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Vice Mayor Harris. Are there any corrections? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 1.3 is our public hearing. We will call out each public hearing, and if you would like to speak to the public hearing, please come to the mic, state your name, and you have 2 minutes to speak. Public hearing number 1, Ordinance 21-16. An ordinance to require the premise identification through numbering of property in the city of Springfield. If you would like to speak for this public hearing, please come to the mic and state your name. If no one would like to speak, the public hearing is closed. Ordinance 21-17, an ordinance amending the fiscal 2022 annual budget by amending certain general funds and utility funds operating budgets. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. If no one would like to speak, the public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 3, Ordinance 21-18, an ordinance amending Title 8 of the Springfield Municipal Codes entitled Alcohol Beverages by amending Chapter 2 entitled Beer for rescinding Section 8-215 entitled Revocation of Beer Permits and 8-216 entitled Civil Penalties in lieu of suspicion in their entireties and substituting a new Section 8-215. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. If no one would like to speak, the public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 4, Ordinance 21-19, an ordinance rezoning 3 parcels located in the 9th Civil District. One located at R.A. Benton Lane from medium-density residential district to multi-residential and office district, and 2 parcels located on South Main from lower-density residential district to multiple residential and office district. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. If there's no one that would like to speak, the public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 5, Ordinance 21-20, an ordinance rezoning 3 parcels located on Hall Lane from commercial general district to multiple residential and office district. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. If no one would like to speak, the public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 6, Ordinance 21-21, ordinance rezoning 3 parcels located on New Chapel Road from medium-density residential district with a planned unit development overlay to medium-density residential districts. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. If no one would like to speak, last call. Would you like to speak to the public hearing? Anyone like to speak? Public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 7, ordinance 21-22, an ordinance rezoning portions of 2 parcels located on William Batson Parkway from low-density residential district with a plan unit development overlay to low-density residential district. If anyone would like to speak, please come to the mic. No one would like to speak? The public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 8, ordinance 21-23, an ordinance amending Title V of the Springfield Municipal Codes by enacting a privilege tax upon the occupancy in any hotel or motel. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. If no one would like to speak, the public hearing is closed. We will move on to our legislative agenda. 2.1, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 21-27, a resolution commending Springfield native Tally Victoria Fleming Bevis upon being crowned Miss Tennessee 2021, and she is in the audience tonight. In a few minutes, we'll ask you to come up. We wanted this to be part of our meeting tonight, and this will go in history because you've made history. We have a motion to discuss made by Alderman Arnold and a second by Alderman Hubbard. Any discussion, ladies and gentlemen?
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
We're so proud of you. We are just so proud of you.
Congratulations, Tally.
We are going to let Ms. Kimberly Brickles read this because we want this to go down in our history.
Resolution 21-27, a resolution commending Taylor Tally Victoria Fleming Bevis upon being crowned Miss Tennessee 2021. Whereas Miss Tally Bevis was crowned Miss Tennessee 2021 on Saturday, July 3rd, 2021, capturing the coveted title sought by a competitive field of young ladies who competed to represent Tennessee in the 2021 Miss USA pageant. And whereas the City of Springfield desires to recognize and applaud Springfield native Miss Tally Bevis as she assumes her role as Miss Tennessee 2021, and whereas Ms. Bevis is passionate about combating voter apathy and has created a nonprofit organization entitled Vote with a Vision to achieve this goal, and whereas her current goal is to register 10,000 voters while inspiring younger generations of Americans to participate in the voting process, and whereas the achievements of Ms. Tally Bevis are a justifiable source of pride and an excellent representation of herself, her family, and the City of Springfield. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee hereby recognize and commend Ms. Taylor Tally Victoria Fleming Bevis for being crowned Miss Tennessee 2021 and extend sincerest wishes for continued success at the Miss USA pageant and in all of her future endeavors. Adopted this 17th day of August 2021.
Thank you for reading that for our minutes. Any discussion on this? Ready for a vote? Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you so much. We're going to ask you to come up. If y'all will come down and we'll have a picture with
Sad to see this. It's just right back there.
her. We are so proud of you. I've known this young lady now for a very long time, and I am so proud to present you and thank you for representing Springfield and Robertson County. We couldn't be any prouder of you. We love you. Now, you've got to watch her on TV in December. Miss Tennessee will be competing for Miss America, and we know she's going to do grand things in her future. She already has. Let's get a picture. Y'all come in. I don't bite. don't know it, Charlotte Fleming is her mother.
Yes, I'm taking.
Guilty.
I tell you, I could cry right now because I've known this lady for a very long time, and she's done a lot of remarkable things. And what is your passion that you're talking about for this passion?
Yeah.
Signing people up to vote.
Yes, that's it, right there.
Tell them the rest of your story for just a minute.
Thank you. Well, it's an honor to be here. This means so much to me, and I'm so grateful that all of you took the time to recognize me. I am born and raised in Springfield, and am actually the first Robertson County citizen to have ever been crowned Miss Tennessee in a 100-year history of this organization. And so I'm very honored to bring it home to Robertson County, to represent Robco, not only in the state, but also at Miss America in December. Miss America is the #1 scholarship provider for women in the United States. Over $2 million in cash scholarships every year at just at the local levels. Thousands of young women are impacted, and it releases barriers for higher education for women. And I've seen it myself. I've earned over $25,000 in academic scholarships in the last 2 years alone. And so it's real, and it's making an impact on me. And because of Miss America, I will be debt-free for my undergraduate at Belmont University by the end of this year. Yes, and so but I'm very honored. Robco raised me, and my mom is an attorney here, and we've spent our life here in Robertson County. And so, Mayor Schneider, it means the world to have you and all the aldermen represent and recognize my work and with Vote with a Vision, which is my nonprofit that I founded. And we do civic literacy education. And we're working on a school tour right now for the spring to work with registering seniors to vote as soon as they turn 18. Because if you start to have it really young, it's not about who you vote for, it's that you show up and then you exercise your right, but also your responsibility. So I'm really excited about the next year and Miss America in December. So thank you so much.
Miss Tennessee!
Thank you so much.
Miss America, come on. 2.2, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-13 on a third and final reading. An ordinance amending portions of the Springfield zoning ordinance pertaining to hotel, motels, and extended stay motels. Do we have a motion to discuss? Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Vice Mayor Harris. Questions on this third and final reading? No questions or discussions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.3, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-14 on a third and final reading. Ordinance rezoning one parcel located in the 9th Civil District on Highway 41 North and Wallace Road from Commercial General District to Commercial Service District. Do we have a motion? Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Green. Questions on the third and final reading? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.4, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-15 on a third and final reading. Ordinance amending Chapter 6 of the Springfield zoning ordinance pertaining to multiple residential and office districts. Motion made. Motion made by Alderman Green, a second by Alderman Hubbard. Discussion on this third and final reading. We do ask questions and have discussion, I promise. This is the third and final reading. We've discussed it to death. Yes, we have. No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.5, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-16 on a second reading or ordinance requiring premises identification through numbers of the property in the city of Springfield. Motion made by Alderman Green, a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss this. This is our second reading tonight, and this is due to, we are going to have requirements where mailboxes will be at a central location in new subdivisions. That is a regulation by the post office, not the city of Springfield. Correct.
That's correct. Can I
Okay.
add one thing, if you don't mind?
Yes, sir.
Last month, I think the question was raised among the body of when this would be required, who would do it, and what we have discussed internally is, in order to put that burden on the contractor, I think is what we wanted to do, or the builder, especially when it's a spec house situation. We're gonna issue the CO, the certificate of occupancy, when that's done. So we'll create that as part of our checklist to issue the certificate of occupancy to solve that issue.
Okay. Any other questions?
I second that.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.6, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-17 on a second reading. Ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022 annual budget by amending certain general funds and utility funds operating budgets. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard and second made by Alderman Green. Discussion, ladies and gentlemen.
Spend the money.
No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.7, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-18 on a second reading. Ordinance amending Title 8 of the Springfield Municipal Code entitled Alcohol Beverages by amending Chapter 2 entitled Beer by rescinding Section 8-215 entitled Revocation of Beer Permits and 8-216 entitled Civil Penalties in lieu of suspicion in its entirety and substituting a new Section 8-215. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss this. Questions?
Comment.
Sir?
How are we doing as far as penalties? Have we had any lately?
I don't think we've had any lately, but that's kind of what brings us to this change, as we ran into some issues in administering those penalties. And Ms. Barty wasn't here last month, so if she wants to kind of give an overview of where that situation stands, that would, and why we're proposing this, that would be a good.
Well, if you all will recall, in 2016, there were some buys that were made by the police department, and I believe there were 6 of those. The beer board issued penalties in the form of suspensions, and fairly significant suspensions on all of those. So each of those permit holders appealed their decision to Chancery Court. We had hearings on each of those on Chancery Court, and essentially, the chancellor at that time said he did not affirm the beer board's punishment, if you will, and pointed out some issues that he had with the structure of our ordinance. So this was done in an effort to comply with the findings and holding of the court in those hearings, and to put our beer permit holders on a more definite penalty notice, and so hopefully to avoid having the beer board overturned if these findings were to go up on writ of certiorari again.
Okay. Questions? Any discussion? No discussion, we're ready for vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.8, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-19 on a second reading. Ordinance rezoning 3 parcels located in the 9th Civil District. One located on RA Benton Lane from medium-density residential district to multiple residential and office districts, and 2 parcels located on South Main Street from low-density residential district to multiple residential and office district. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second made by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Questions on the second reading? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.9, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-20 on a second reading. Ordinance rezoning 3 parcels located on Hall Lane from commercial general district to multiple residential and office district. We have a motion made by Alderman Hubbard. Do we have a second? Second made by Alderman Green. Any discussion? Questions? No questions? Right.
Does this need to be amended to include the third parcel?
Yes, it does need to be amended.
This one? Okay, our city manager,
So you all, we discussed this last month on first reading. This is the Hall Lane. The residents sort of determined and figured out that if their houses burned down or something happened to them, they couldn't rebuild because they were zoned commercial. A third resident has now sort of found out what is going on and would like to be included in this rezoning. We certainly recommend that. Instead of doing a separate ordinance and running that separately, we would recommend to keep it clean for you all to amend this and include that third property as amended. So what you'll see on your ordinance is it's a revised copy that now adds a third parcel to that rezoning so we can get all 3 of those property owners taken care of.
okay? Any discussion? No discussion? No one would like to amend this?
We've done it.
They've already done it.
Oh, they've already done it. Okay. I'm sorry, you're right. Just seeing if you're awake. Any discussion? No discussion? Ready for a vote?
On the amendment? On
On the amendment, yes. I better vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay? Okay, now we're back to the main motion as amended. Any discussion? No discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.10, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-21 on a second reading. Ordinance rezoning 3 parcels located on the New Chapel Road from medium-density residential district with a planned unit development overlay to medium-density residential district. We have a motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Questions? Discussion? Crickets? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.11, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-22 on a second reading. Ordinance rezoning portions of 2 parcels located on William A. Batson Parkway from low-density residential districts with a planned unit development overlay to low-density residential district. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Green to discuss. Any questions on this second reading? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.12, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-23 on a second reading. Ordinance amending Title V of the Springfield Municipal Code by enacting a privilege tax upon the occupancy in any hotel or motel. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris and a second by Alderman Green to discuss. Any questions on this second reading for this tax? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.13, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-24 on a first reading. On ordinance rezoning a portion of one parcel located on West Hillcrest Drive from commercial service district to medium density residential district. We have a motion by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Green to discuss. Questions on this first reading?
Has to read it.
Sir? Oh, that's right. We hadn't had any first readings tonight. Last time before last, she had so many she couldn't get a breath. Ms. Brickles?
Ordinance 21-24, an ordinance rezoning a portion of one parcel located on West Hillcrest Drive from Commercial Services District to Medium Density Residential District. Whereas an application for rezoning was presented to the Springfield Planning Commission by Roger and Royce Holman, owners, and Ed Cope, owner's authorized agent, requesting a portion of one parcel, tax map 91C, Group E, parcel 37.01 of the tax maps of Robertson County, Tennessee, approximately 0.1607 acres or 7,000 square feet, located on West Hillcrest Drive, be rezoned from commercial services to medium density residential district. Whereas the Springfield Planning Commission has reviewed the application and voted with a favorable recommendation for this portion of the parcel to be rezoned. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. A portion of one parcel totaling approximately 0.1607 acres owned by Roger and Royce Holman, located on West Hillcrest Drive, tax map 91C, Group E, parcel 37.01 of the tax maps of Robertson County, Tennessee, and being more fully described by Exhibit A attached, is hereby rezoned from commercial services to medium-density residential district. This rezoning shall become effective following its third and final passage as required by law.
Thank you. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard and a second by Alderman Green to discuss this. Questions?
Wanting to put a house on it, is that what they're wanting to do?
They are. It's sort of an odd situation where you have a portion of a parcel zoned commercial and a portion of it zoned R10. And so by rezoning the portion that's zoned commercial, they'll have enough to square footage to be able to comply with the zoning to build a residence there.
Just one?
Just one. Did I sum that up correctly?
Quite an odd circumstance.
Yeah, it's very odd.
I got several phone calls on this one. Any questions?
Comment. It's sort of in with the Robertson County, what's the Robertson County,
Credit union?
credit union on
Back there on the.
Yes, I think it's right behind it, is it?
Yeah.
It's a street or two over.
It's down on the other corner.
That's
Yeah.
right. It's down, because it's
This
West
side
Hillcrest.
of it, Mr. Brewer, Hillcrest Residence, is this side of Hillcrest? That's in my ward.
Yes, sir. It is in your ward.
Mhm.
Other questions or discussion? Mr. Gregg?
I thought Hillcrest was my ward.
The other side. This side is mine.
Yeah.
There ain't no other side. It's either east or west.
East side is yours, west side is mine. I said the other side. As you go down on me.
I'm not gonna even say anything about that. Okay, any more discussion?
It was clarified, he just said here.
Any more discussion? No more discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change the vote? Please record the vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 2.14, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 21-25 on a first reading. Ordinance amending Chapter 8 of the Springfield zoning ordinance pertaining to landscape requirements. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Hubbard. And Ms. Brickles, will you read this on the first reading?
Ordinance 21-25, an ordinance amending Chapter 8 of the Springfield zoning ordinance pertaining to landscaping requirements. Whereas it has become apparent that landscaping requirements within the Springfield zoning ordinance need to be clarified to ensure that the requirements are reasonable, and whereas Springfield's landscaping requirements will ensure that all future commercial, industrial, and residential projects add value to the city, and whereas the Springfield Regional Planning Commission recommends that the Springfield zoning ordinance be amended to establish clarified landscaping design requirements. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. Section 11-813 of the Springfield zoning ordinance entitled Landscaping Requirements is hereby amended by amending subsection C entitled Design of Landscaping and Buffers to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
Thank you. I will call on our city manager now.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is something brand new, and when we talk about, clearing up some things or some things that maybe had a negative impact, this is one of those things that had a negative impact on development. So our current tree replacement portion of the landscaping ordinance is pretty difficult. And so we've run into some issues, obviously, with the growth coming in. We've run into some issues with some development that becomes really difficult because we're requiring currently, and Mr. Brewer's going to, excuse me, go over this in a little bit more detail so we make sure we're all understanding what's going on here. Development becomes difficult. The R.A. Benton project that you all approved the rezoning just earlier becomes extraordinarily difficult because of the tree replacement ordinance. And so what we would like to do is we've drafted a proposal to ease those restrictions. So what I placed at all of your spots is a redlined version of this because the official version was uploaded in your packet, so we placed a redline version for you to see actually what's changing. So all of this is not new that's in your packet, it's just the red line. Mr. Brewer's going to go over a little bit in detail and also explain a situation that we've come across where this becomes more difficult. So Mayor, if you're okay.
Yes, sir, Mr. Brewer. You will come to the mic and walk us through your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. The existing ordinance is recapped right here as seen. These are minimum requirements. We have a minimum of 3 canopy trees per acre, and 3 understory trees per acre, and 10 shrubs or evergreens per acre. Now, I would like to put the caveat out there. This is on a site that has trees that are less than 18-inch caliper or diameter. So our ordinance only requires replacement of trees 18 inches in diameter and larger. So there's also this next requirement, lot frontage for every 100 feet, and this is a minimum requirement. There will be 5 understory trees, 50% of which will be evergreen, 10 shrubs, 50% of which will be evergreen. So this is a pre-existing. For commercial lots, industrial lots, multi-residential lots that abut residential zoning districts, those have a buffer along that, and they require 2 canopy trees, 50% evergreen, 5 understory trees, 50% evergreen, 10 shrubs, 50% evergreen. And this is where this next part is where a heavily wooded lot has trouble meeting our landscaping ordinance. Any tree presently that is 18 inches or above, we replace it with half the caliber inches. So my example is a 20 caliber inch tree, we'll replace it with 10 caliber inches. 2-inch caliber trees, that would be 5 trees. So that's the way it is right now. Help if I turn this on.
Sometimes.
The proposed, nothing changes. It stays the same until we get to the replacement of the existing trees. So what we are recommending is that when there is a large number of trees 18 inches and over, we have a cap of 60 caliber inches per acre. And if the developer cannot get that number of trees or that number of caliber inches onto the site, that they pay a fee to the tree fund for the city of Springfield of $150 per caliber inch. So, to compare our proposed versus other cities' requirements, in Franklin, they have a 103 caliper inch requirement for every acre of trees. They have a replacement calculation of 2 inches per caliber inch removed. And then they have a tree fund, and in lieu of payment, they calculated, their planning department and their planning and sustainability department calculate that fee. They have a city arborist on staff, and so they calculate that, and I feel very confident when I say that it's probably more than $150 per inch of caliber in Franklin, but I don't know that for sure. In Goodlettsville, they have a 70-inch per acre requirement that is capped at 150%, which is 105 caliber inches per acre. And they calculate, and they also require replacement of trees from 8 inches to from 8 inches up. When they're up to 18, just less than 18, it's a half an inch per inch replacement, or 50%. When they're 18 and more, it's an inch-to-inch replacement, period. And then they have an in lieu payment of $150 per caliber inch. So we're proposing that we cap ours at 60 inches, which is, I think, a fair amount tree-wise. The way we would calculate that is more than 18, or 18 or more, less than 24, those would be replaced at a half an inch per inch caliber. 24 and more, they would be replaced on an inch per inch caliber, and if they're not able to get the replacement trees on site, they would pay a fund to our tree fund, or pay an amount to our tree fund of $150 per caliper inch. So here's a case study. Now, this is the existing landscaping requirements. We have a site plan that's been submitted, and there are 29 trees that have to be replaced. One of them is as big as 48 inches in diameter. So the total replacement, or the total caliper inches, is 648 caliper inches. If we replace that at 50%, that's 324 caliper inches. Divide that by 2, that's 162 trees on a 2.3 acre site. That's what our ordinance requires right now, and there is no adjustment or availability to not do that. That's the requirement. So doing it the way we have it proposed, even though the 24 inches and up would be calculated at 1-to-1, and there would be the required replacements would be 513 inches, we're only going to require 160 inches, 138 inches, 60 caliper inches per acre. So 2 times 3 times 60, 2.3 times 60 gives us 138 inches to be replaced, or 69 trees. And those 69 trees can fall, they can be put anywhere on the site, and if they can't get them on the site, they have the availability to pay that $150 per caliber inch to our tree fund, which we can use for trees on the city's property, or we could have Arbor Day events where we give out trees samples, or we can use it to purchase black willow slips to help stabilize our stream banks. There's many options that we can do with that money.
And this was brought to your attention by someone wanting to do a development.
This case study.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
And this,
we found it ourselves, but it got to be obvious that it was going to be. And in this particular site, those are the only trees that had to be replaced, 29. On a bigger site, you could wind up with 40 per acre, 18 above. It could get pretty substantial replacement numbers. And so we had no mechanism to cap it. We had no mechanism to allow a developer relief from the requirement. And so after discussion with Mr. Martin and Mr. Moore, we looked at the other ordinances, and we came up with what we thought would be best for Springfield. We realized that we're not Franklin, we're not Goodlettsville, we're not other places, but we do want to try to have a more attractive city. Trees help stabilize ground, prevent erosion. They absorb water when it rains. They reduce runoff. They sequester carbon. And they have, they make a site aesthetically pleasing as well. I think our goal is to try to make Springfield as attractive as we possibly can, and this is
absolutely.
one way to help do that. I feel that as we make Springfield more and more attractive, it will help attract more development.
Okay. I'm sure that this body will have some questions for you. Mr. Gregg, I think you raised your hand first.
I understand the changing of this, but 69 trees on 2.3 acres is a forest.
Well, that is if you use our minimum requirement, once again, is 2-inch caliber trees. There's nothing in the ordinance that prohibits you from using a 3-inch caliber tree or a 4-inch caliber
Right.
tree.
When you say the tree, you're talking actual tree. This is not shrubs or anything of that nature.
No, this is trees, replacement of trees. And it includes understory trees and canopy trees. So when we say you've got to replace 138 caliber inches, there is a mix. They don't have to all be canopies. They can't all be understories, but you can have a mix of canopies and understory trees. And if you can't get that amount onto the site, you can pay in lieu of $150 per inch that you can't get onto the site. But, the trees that go on the site, they also, as the trees get bigger, they provide more shade, they reduce energy costs on the building itself. There are substantial advantages to having trees on the site, but I can understand Mr. Gregg's concern as well.
This
But
is on a commercial proposal?
this is on a commercial proposal.
Next
You have
question.
another question, Joe?
This is on a $3 million investment this young lady is trying to make, and by the time you spend $3 million and then you start doing this, she would hope to get it paid for sometime in her lifetime. I feel like it's just, and I understand, I'm not against trees. And most of this is being caused because of the trees that's already there that need to be replaced instead of. But if you ride through Springfield, the new Verizon store, Starbucks store, there's a small amount there, and it looks good. You go by Vol State, you'd have to be a bank to afford to keep it up. It's beautiful, but it's too much.
On these numbers, though, that you've come, are we under any state requirement as far as the trees that have to be replaced or anything of that nature?
No,
Or
sir,
these just-
that is our existing ordinance.
And your proposal of cutting this from 169 to 162 to 69, this is just numbers that are kind of coinciding with other areas that are around us.
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, our requirement would be less than the surrounding areas.
And
But
I said, I'm not against the trees and having to be replaced, but I would have to somewhat agree. 69 trees, 2-inch trees on 2 acres of land is a lot of trees.
Yes, sir. And once again, that's a minimum requirement. 3-inch trees can be done, 4-inch trees, but we
But as they
say,
go up in inches, it's gonna cost them more money for the size of the tree. A
Yes,
2-inch
sir.
tree is gonna be less than a 4-inch tree, is that right?
yes, sir.
Other questions? Who's next? Anybody else have a question while Mr. Brewer's at the podium?
I guess my question would be, what are we thinking is making 69 trees look right on 2 acres of property? Where are we coming up with that? Where are we substantiating that?
So, looking around to see what other cities do, and it's a lot less than that. So, in a relative situation, what we're doing is a lot less than somebody that was putting a $3 million investment into another city in Middle Tennessee. It's less than what they would have to do. I think what we would find too with this development, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, but in order to make that buffer work, the residential, because there's a buffer there between this particular parcel abuts a residential subdivision, they're probably going to end up putting more than 69 trees there anyway, just to accomplish that.
Could quite possibly do that.
So I don't think, Mr. Moore, do you,
No, and you're talking about replacing trees.
will you pass him the mic, please, so we can pick this up?
Yes, in most situations, when we're talking about cutting down a lot of these trees or commercial development being next to this residential neighborhood, where in this particular case, there was people that were looking at woods in their backyard are now looking at dumpster. Where the trees all were, now it's a dumpster there, that's your backyard. And you had to put these buffers to, protect people's properties and views. And by meeting the buffer requirements in this particular case, in this case study, they easily meet the replacement requirements of this development. Now, and another way to look at this is just take into consideration is you're talking about cutting down all these trees. Well, you don't have to cut down every large tree on a site. A tree is a resource. It's not easily replaced. And so if you have a 36-inch tree and say, I'll cut it down, well, there should, you got to replace that treasure or that asset that was once there that now is gone. And we're half the requirement of most the neighboring cities.
Most
It
all of
may
Middle
seem like a
Tennessee.
lot, but it really is not when you start considering buffer zones, lot frontages, the replacement requirement. I mean, we're not even close to our neighbors.
Mr. Harris, the answer to your question, so the goal in the ordinance, if you look at, on your Exhibit A, page 2 at the top, each newly developed site shall have a goal to have a minimum caliper inch of 40 caliper inches of proposed trees. So that's a goal that we would like to set for new development. That's not a requirement. But when we talk about tree replacement, if you move over a page and you look down below the chart there in section J, the replacement requirement is capped at 150% of the proposed goal. So we're setting a goal of 40%. The idea being that if you go in and have to clear a lot of trees, we don't want you to have to replace all of those to cap it at 150%. 150% of the goal is kind of what we found in other cities as well. So I think I shared with a few of you that this is one of those situations that this is new to us, but it's not new to Middle Tennessee. It's just new to us because we're later on experiencing the growth, that other cities in Middle Tennessee have already experienced. So we look around and see how they solve this problem. What I would ask this board to do tonight is if you don't like this, that's fine. But I would ask that you offer an amendment or offer or something, or if you'd like us to go back and do some more research and would like us to do that, that's fine. But we have development, specifically this case study that we're talking about, that's being held up by this. And we can ease that pain if we can get this, something like this going. So I'm not saying that to hold this hostage, but I'm just saying let's don't lose a month. If you don't like it, please offer an amendment or something, a suggestion that we can do better or do differently.
And we can pass this tonight and move it on and still amend it on the second.
You can still amend on second.
And we can discuss right now too, how we want to amend it, and we can amend it tonight.
But you're saying that this development has already approached the city about the number of trees they've got to replace?
Yes,
We've been, for several months, or a few months, we've been,
and we will be holding that project up. And
Well-
if we don't do anything tonight, they are under the existing rules.
Correct.
Correct.
and they still are until this thing passes on third reading, until something passes on third reading. We're just asking the board to ease those restrictions. This is the research that we have done with other cities in Middle Tennessee, and we thought that those were too restrictive. I mean, you see that what Franklin and Goodlettsville offer at 100 and 105 caliper inches per acre, it didn't slow their development down, and I still, frankly, personally didn't like that. And so we came up with a 40 caliper goal with a 150% cap of 60 caliper inches, and so that's what we're proposing to you all tonight. It's your call.
Sure.
And so we just are bringing a recommended
If this
proposal.
money goes into this tree fund, then how is that
great.
managed?
I'm sorry.
And if they decide that they're not gonna be able to put the number of trees in and they wanna pay this, so if these, on that plan that you had there, let's say they decided they couldn't put any of those trees in, how much money are they gonna pay? Is
I
that,
have not done that calculation, but
Yeah.
150 per caliber inch, so
Yeah,
be several thousands dollars?
yeah.
That would be, of course, that wouldn't be possible though, because of
Yeah,
the
I mean,
buffers
the
that they would be
buffers
required.
that they have to put.
But yeah,
Then-
that'd be $20,000 if they just said.
let's say that
We're not
they only,
replacing it.
they 20 inches, what would that be, 20 inches? They weren't able to put,
$3,000.
Yeah,
and so that would go into the tree fund, which would be in Public Works' budget, and they would allocate how to buy trees. Are we gonna have a program where we provide trees to students on Arbor Day? We could go and give pine saplings out.
I fully support it. I mean, I think we need to make it easier than what the present requirement is, but my other question's gonna be, who decides, or is it up to them to decide if I want to do this or I don't want to do this? I just soon pay the money and not do it, or are
Well,
you still gonna be required to do it?
Well, we're gonna require them to meet the minimum requirements.
The ordinance is written, and I'll draw your attention to, if you look at the second page of Exhibit A, Section 2D, it says if required landscaping and total caliper inch replacement of removed trees cannot be reasonably placed on the proposed site. So, using our case study as the example, if they brought us, a development that said, look, we've got to have this size square foot of building, we've got to have this parking, and because of the way the lot is laid out, it can only be set up this way, and we can only get 64 of those trees. Then reasonably, then I think that then they would be allowed, under the way the ordinance is worded, to take those 5 trees or the 10 remaining inches and be able to pay the in lieu of to the city's tree fund. That's the way the ordinance is worded.
At their decision or at the city's decision?
At the
As
city's.
whether they can reasonably do it or not?
The cities, we would evaluate and look at that site plan and say, okay, yeah, you're right, we would take their word for it, but we wouldn't let someone come in and clear a lot and say, yeah, I don't really want to put those trees. It would have to be, there would have to be factors like the way the site's laid out, the way the lot is, what they need. For instance, one of the issues with this particular site is they need twice or 3 times the amount of parking. Maybe that's a little bit of exaggeration, but I think it's double the amount of parking that the ordinance requires. Our parking ordinance only requires a certain amount of spots, and they're proposing twice that because of their business, because of the business that they're in, and they know the amount of spots that they need. So what that does is that takes up green space, and that takes up space you could put trees. Factors like that are what we would consider when in the reasonableness.
As I said, I'm not against it, because I think
Yeah.
what you're proposing to do, it's going to be a help. But I think we also need to understand what it is we're doing.
Yeah.
And
True.
the
Yeah.
citizens need to understand what it is we're doing.
Absolutely.
Alderman Green, it's your turn. You've had your hand up for a while.
No, it's all good. It's all very good and informative. I would assume there would be some financial benefit to them also in cutting down large trees like that. They would be receiving some sort of, able to sell the wood or timber, which would help with any replacement costs as well, I would assume. So it's not that they're completely coming out of pocket. But I think that given the fact that we're looking at comparable cities who have much greater requirements, and this is significantly reducing what we do have in place now, if it turns out that this is still too strenuous for people, they can always approach the city again, and we can always revisit it again. But I think it's a good step in the right direction, while still maintaining a certain degree of expectation that the developers are going to respect the place that they've come into.
Thank you. Other questions or discussion on this
Comment.
side of the road?
Comment would be, we're
Sir.
comparing ourselves to Franklin, and we're blue collar, and that's white collar.
Oh, boy.
Well, and Goodlettsville has
Heard this statement.
a
Heard this
more
statement.
restraint. They would be higher requirements than we would too, right?
Goodlettsville does, yes.
Goodlettsville.
And the reason I picked Franklin was because I could find their landscaping requirements a little bit easier than other places. Yes, I'm gonna tell you, Franklin has a very difficult landscaping ordinance. They require every tree in the city that is 8 inches or above to have a permit to remove it, irregardless of whether it's on your house lot or it's part of a redevelopment area. They have a requirement for reforestation that's quite frankly mind-boggling, and but they hold their people to it. They've even renamed their planning department to the planning department and sustainability department. That's how committed they are to improving their little piece of Tennessee. And like I said, I know we're not Franklin, and we're not Goodlettsville, but we are Springfield, and I don't think these are unreasonable. But like Mr. Martin said, if this doesn't meet, if this is not what you as a board think we need to do, please let us know how you want to amend this. But as it is right now, it's
more strenuous now.
Yes, it's very strenuous and very, could be punitive, and it will definitely be on a fully timbered lot. This lot is nowhere close to fully timbered. On a fully timbered lot, it could get quite,
No, I'm not jumping.
you know, the tree replacement calculation as we have it in our ordinance, they might not be able to build half of what they want to build on it.
Okay. Mr. Hubbard has a question.
I support this 110%, and still our intentions were when we opened up that Batson Parkway, we know about blue collarism, but we're trying to move a little heavy in the white collar field too. So I don't want to sell us short of, well, we got to kind of remain heavy on the blue collar, small town, country living, okay? Because that's a no-no. And yes, our models will have to be cities like Franklin and Goodlettsville, which are comparative in size. So my thing of it is, this is a great plan. Let's move forward with it, understand me, and let's take us where we need to be.
Next question. Yes,
Do
sir.
we know what White House does?
No, sir, I did not have the opportunity to investigate what they did.
I think that would be a comparable city.
Yes, sir. I'll be glad to investigate that.
We could pull those for next meeting. Any more
I mean, I'm just
discussion?
asking.
Oh, sure, it's a good
And I'll be
question.
glad to get you that information as soon as I can find it out, sir.
Goodlettsville, if you don't mind, Mayor, Goodlettsville is similar in size. Of course, White House is quite a bit smaller than us, and so they're
They're a very growing area, though.
They're very growing, yeah, and I think they will oftentimes look to what regulations we've
Yeah.
adopted, because we faced some things before they have. Their latest population, they were still around in the 12,000 in the census this past time. We look at Franklin, yes, we're not Franklin, we don't want to be Franklin, we want to be Springfield, but Franklin is a city that is similarly situated to us in that it's a county seat, that it has a historic downtown, and so there are things that we can look to at cities like Franklin and Lebanon that have those, that are similarly situated, Whereas White House, it doesn't have that, you know, and Goodlettsville really is just comparable in size. We have almost identical population to White House. I think we are still a little ahead of them. But that's the reason we use Franklin, we don't want to turn into someone else or somewhere else, but when the problem has already been faced and solved somewhere, and we can look and see what's been done and tried in other areas that has maybe worked.
Okay, next question, while he's still at the mic. Any more questions? Good discussion. Thank you, Mr. Brewer. Any other before we get ready for a vote?
Keep researching it, Mr. Good job.
Thank you. No more questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-1.
Thank you.
This does take 3 readings, correct?
Yes. We're moving on to our administrative portion. 3.1, discuss and possible take action on the adjustment of the retail electric rates of the Springfield Electric Department due to a wholesale fuel cost adjustment by the Tennessee Valley Authority. Motion made by Alderman Arnold and a second by Alderman Green to discuss. Mr. Sachs.
I bring you good news tonight. The fuel cost adjustment will go down 0.8% this next month.
Okay. Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
3.2, discuss and possible take action on the adjustments of the monthly gas rates of the Springfield Gas Department. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Mr. Riddle, do you have news like Mr. Sachs?
Unfortunately, I don't have to.
Why not?
Market's crazy.
Market's unique.
Petroleum products, but the purchase gas adjustment's up 16.64%. To give it, to put this in perspective, give you just an idea, our wholesale gas last year, the same time we were buying for $1.35 an MCF per million. This year, we're paying about, this month, $3.42. So that gives you what the market's done in a year's time.
Wow. We can talk about a lot of subjects that have gone up.
And this is, you know, a lot of it has to do with the hotter than normal summers. Production's been flat. West Coast states that are generating electricity are not looking at natural gas as a resource. So a lot of factors play into it, but how you deal with a commodity. And if I could tell you what it's gonna do, I wouldn't be sitting here.
No, sir. You would be laying on a beach in Hawaii. Any questions? Thank you. No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 3.3, discuss and possible take action on the various boards and commissions. Motion made by Alderman Green to discuss, and a second by Alderman Hubbard. Questions? Discussion? Yes, sir?
It would help out occasionally if we would get a report on the Highland Crest as far as courses.
We'll be able to provide that.
Student body.
We'll do that. We can provide that.
Sure can.
Yeah,
Be happy to do that.
because I got 5 ulcers for fighting to get that college here, so, you know, I want to make sure it's going up.
Yes, sir, I was here, I remember. Any other discussion? We'll be happy to get that,
Thank you, ma'am.
because it's going well, from my understanding. No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 3.4, discuss and possible take action on the contract with the City of Greenbrier, Tennessee for the sale and purchase of portable water. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second made by Alderman Green to discuss. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. So you saw in your packet that our last agreement with the city of Greenbrier expired in 2011, and there were supposed to be renewals that were executed, and none were. So Greenbrier has been paying our standard wholesale rate, and they're under a lot of pressure right now. They're in quite a bind on both their water and wastewater systems in Greenbrier, and they reached out to see what we could do about a new agreement, but also approached another utility, and so they were kind of shopping. And we don't want to lose Greenbrier as a customer. Obviously, we can't give away the farm either, but granted, the rate that we were charging them at their rate of purchase, which is about 18 million gallons a month, is, I believe, higher than our industrial customers will pay. So that's not really a fair situation either, or saying that we're doing something good. So we negotiated with them. The Greenbrier Board of Mayor and Aldermen has approved this agreement, and so it's submitted tonight for your approval. It's a 20-year agreement. There's also, for the first time, a minimum purchase quantity, and it's tiered. So if you notice, it may look funny in that you see on the chart in the agreement that, well, why when they buy less do they pay less, but then they buy more and they pay more? And that's because there's an average price that we were trying to look at for our own utility, but try to give them a break on the front end of that first 10 years and make it up on the back end, because they need help now. They're under pressure. When we talk about, and we talked about it, strategic planning, our worst case scenario is when we get that nasty gram from the state that says that we're in trouble because of our net position. They've gotten that nasty gram, and they're in trouble, and they had to go up a lot on their water rates this year. And so they ask if we could create the agreement and structure it like a balloon note, essentially, where so this benefits us more, obviously, on the back end of that 10 years, and then we flatten out on the last 10. Increases are built in, so any rate you see in this agreement is subject to whatever increase that we pass, subject to some limitations, because that's one of the things that they wanted is capped increases. We went up quite a bit on their rates. Just to give you an idea, from the year 2001, when that agreement was first signed, they were paying $1.69 a thousand. Right now, they're paying $4.91 a thousand. So it went up kind of fast, and so they would like more stability, and so we capped the increases. So if we pass along an increase to our customers, our wholesale would be subject to this agreement, but the increase should still stand. We get a long-term customer out of it, as I said, so it benefits us, and we get a minimum purchase quantity, which gives us budgetary stability moving forward. And it's the largest customer we have, by far, with 18. They average between, I think last month they purchased about 19.5 million gallons, but it averages usually between 17 and 19.
Well,
So-
and I thank you for the hours you've spent negotiating with this. Questions?
Is there a reason
Sir?
why this hadn't been looked at since 2011, just because nobody asked?
We've never
or
discussed it.
No one asked. We sent the bill and they paid it, I guess. So
Were they paying our standard rate?
They were.
Those 10 years before?
they were paying, I'm not sure how the rate was treated under the old agreement from 2001 to 2011, because another part to this, and I left this out, is in 2007, the board passed a tap fee that got passed along that was specific to Greenbrier residents. So new residential development in Greenbrier had to pay a $400 tap fee. No one really knows why that happened. We think it might have been for infrastructure. That's the way the ordinance reads. As a wholesale customer, we shouldn't be charging a tap fee to another utility's customers because they're their own utility. And so one of the negotiating points for this was that they wanted that tap fee to be rescinded. Because then if they charge a tap fee, because they're the ones maintaining that infrastructure, then the residents really getting hit hard with
That
tap
fee came to Springfield.
It did, came to our utility on the new construction in Greenbrier, which was very, very odd and very unique. I'm sure there was a reason and rationale for it at the time. Our capital cost needs to be recovered in our margin, in what we charge them for water. And so we're in good shape on providing water to them. Mr. Beers isn't here tonight, but Mr. Rowe is, if you have any specific questions. But we're upgrading that pump station there, and of course, we have plenty of water to sell them, and so that's another reason why we certainly wouldn't want to lose a 19 million gallon customer a month.
No, we would not. Questions? Mr. Hubbard, you got a question?
No, I'm just gonna comment 2007, it was
Yeah, tell
There
us.
was a lot of irresponsibility with developers, and we were not really getting our fair share.
Gotcha.
And that's what we had to do, what we had to do.
Okay. Questions
But
on
our-
this side of the room?
Our infrastructure's good, providing them the water.
Yes, our infrastructure is good.
Nothing we've got to be doing or.
We're finishing the pump station upgrade now. We've been upgrading it, so all those tap fees, I guess, that they were paying are going towards that, are helping us upgrade that. But we're gonna be in good
We
shape, and
can
it's,
rescind that now.
we've upsized it, and so if you all
We'll see how we
approve
got
this
away with
agreement, then what we'll do is bring back the ordinance, because it was done by ordinance, because it is a fee. So we'll bring the ordinance next month to rescind it.
Questions on this side of the room? No questions? Any more questions from this side of the room?
I'm a good neighbor. Let's help them out.
Okay? No more
Yes,
questions?
Mr. Martin.
We are ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 3.5, discuss and possible take action to approve the conveyance of the Bransford Community Center property located at 1519 John L. Patterson Street to Greater Faith Community Action Corporation for the sum of $5,000. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Gregg to discuss. Questions and discussion, please.
I'll be abstaining. I'm their digital marketer.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns, discussion? Ready for a vote? Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 5-0 to 1.
Thank you. 3.6, discuss and possible take action on the proposal from Griggs and Malone, Inc. in the amount of $305,000 for engineering services for the high-service pump upgrade at the water treatment plant. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Do we have a second? Second made by Alderman Green. Questions, concerns, discussion?
Let it rip.
Yes, sir. Any discussion? No discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, ma'am. 3.7, discuss and possible take action on a change order in the amount of $97,525 to the Tech Coat Inc. contract to repair filter media at the water treatment plant. Motion made by Alderman Green and second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Questions on this change order? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. 3.8, discuss and possible take action on an amendment in the amount of $25,609 to the engineering service contract with Grisham Smith, Inc. regarding the relocation of utilities for the Batson Parkway extension. Motion made by Alderman Green and a second by Alderman Arnold. Questions on this change order?
Comment.
Sir?
I am so glad to see something moving that way.
We've talked about this for so long.
16 and 17 years later.
I said change order, this is an amendment to the amount. Let me correct my words, get them right. Any questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. We'll move on to our consent doc.
Mayor, without objection, I move we take it as one.
Yes, sir?
Second.
Any objection? Okay, any discussion on the consent doc? No discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change the vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. I will report that I will be going to the Tennessee Municipal League's meeting representing the city of Springfield in the month of September before our next meeting. I will now turn our meeting over to our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. We will, as a follow-up to that landscaping ordinance, we will check with the city of White House and cast as much of a net as we can cast, and maybe have some better information that we'll upload for you in your in next month's packet. That way, because we want you to make an informed decision, and also if you have any suggestions or modifications you'd like to make, that would be good as well. So the census data was released on Thursday, and we're pleased to report that our official population is up to 18,782. Now, we still believe that that's a little bit of a conservative count because of the difficulties. You remember, we were trying to conduct a census last year in the middle of a pandemic, which I don't know that that's ever been done in the country, and so that was challenging. But what it does mean, in any event, is that's a 14.26% increase in our population in 10 years. That's a double-digit increase. Very few cities in Tennessee saw double-digit increase. So that's an indicator of the amount of growth that we're seeing. Ironically, almost all of that growth we've seen within the last 2 years. And all of that growth that we've seen from 2010 to 2020, we'll see that same amount of growth we expect in the next 3 to 5. So we're going to do it again in the next 3 to 5 years. Robertson County was up about 9.8%, so very close to 10%, close to double digits. So we outpaced the county. A lot of people are moving to Springfield. We have, as we say over and over again, we have a lot of momentum here, and we have a lot of people moving here. The data necessary for redistricting has not been released yet. That data will be released in September, so we will follow up with you as that process begins. All we got last time was city and county data. Obviously, COVID-19 is something that's on a lot of folks' minds right now. The Delta variant continues to be an issue. Last month, I believe, when we were together, I said there was no cause for concern locally. That has quickly changed. And so in speaking with folks at Northcrest, they are full. And so they're seeing exactly what you saw last week come out from Williamson Medical Center, from Sumner Regional, from other hospitals in Middle Tennessee. Northcrest is in the same shape. So we're told that a majority of the patients are unvaccinated, and those that are hospitalized that are vaccinated tend to be those that are severely immunocompromised. The local task force is reactivating this week, so we will be engaged again in those regular discussions with the other local health officials, local governmental officials. We're continuing to take precautions with regard to cleaning our buildings and that sort of thing that we've been doing that we never stopped, frankly, and we're prepared to take further action if our local health officials advise us to. The mayor mentioned, the mayor mentioned that Dan and Shay were here and filmed a music video a couple weeks ago, and it was released yesterday. One of the things that goes unnoticed about that type of thing is the economic boost from it. So we had crew members staying at local hotels. We had local restaurants doing catering. And so those are the things that you don't see. Yes, it's an inconvenience, and it was, we tried to keep traffic moving as much as possible because no roads were really shut down, trying to navigate around that. But they shopped and ate here and stayed here and played here. And so we get an economic boost when that happens. And because of Dan and Shay's popularity, we get a lot of exposure for the city of Springfield. And so that was a good deal. Precision Products, update you where we are on that. We've kind of determined that we're not able to take down that building in a safe manner and with the equipment that we have in-house, internally. So the asbestos has now been abated. The Phase 1 environmental study is complete, and so we're going to be looking at bidding out demolition. As you know, as a refresher, we've got virtually no real offers on that were acceptable, and so we believe investing this. We'll see where the bids come, but we believe investing this amount of money makes the property more valuable than what we would have gotten. Free Movie Friday is this Friday at the fairgrounds. The movie that'll be showing is Trolls World Tour. Here, that's another one of Terry Martin's favorites, and it starts at 8 p.m. He was reciting it to me in the office the other day, and I just told him to hush. But we're currently in the midst of doing an employee benefits survey. We're reaching out because of a lot of changes that are going on with regard to our potentially our health insurance landscape. We're surveying employees on all the benefits that we offer because there's no sense in putting money into a benefit that no one cares about, that we could take that same amount of money and put into another benefit. Benefits have changed over the last few years among employers. We want to stay competitive. We want to stay marketable and recruit and retain quality employees. There is a public survey that will be going out for input into public park improvements. This is a supplement to our grant application for the Blue Cross Healthy Places grant. We've put in for that grant for 3 or 4 years now. This will be the third, and we haven't gotten it yet, so we're hopeful that'll help us tremendously, but they're asking for a public survey this year. So it's not part of the Parks Master Plan that you all will see next month awarding that contract when we want a wider range of citizen input. The city of Springfield will be present again with a booth on the square for First Friday Night Market and with our summer concert series. It's the Jimmy Church Band this month, which is great. We've not had them before, so we're excited about that.
What kind of music?
It's,
Brass,
yeah,
instruments.
yeah. It's unique. We've really changed it up this year. I give credit to Mr. Martin on that. We've really changed it up to try to have something for everyone this year, so.
September, the last one?
No, October.
October's the last market, September's the last concert. They go one more month for,
Yeah.
they'll have a DJ. Yeah, they'll have a
It has
DJ.
been awesome.
It's been
If
packed.
you've not attended, I will encourage you to attend. It's been so great. Mr. Martin, anything else?
I'm finished, thank you.
I am so sorry, I should have mentioned this earlier. My condolences to Alderman Hubbard. He lost his sister, and I'm sure he'll be going to Texas next week. We are so sorry for the loss of your sister. This meeting is adjourned.